Ciao, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. We are doing another Mediterranean diet recipe video featuring two incredible breakfast recipes. I really wanted to include 3 breakfast recipes. Today simply slipped away and it's almost 6 p.m. But I got the request specifically to have more meal prep freezer friendly breakfast ideas. I have a ton of them on my website and I just wanted to add a few more. As you guys know, I love my creative recipes that get myself and others out of their comfort zone. So what makes these cinnamon rolls so special? Well, they are a date caramel cinnamon filling with a lovely maple tahini glaze frosting on top. So to start out making these cinnamon rolls, you want to make, yes, I know, I feature it in almost all my recipe videos, don't hate me, the one-to-one incredible, it's actually not one-to-one, but people claim it is, high protein Greek yogurt dough. So for this recipe specifically, I took 1.5 cups of self-rising flour, aka all-purpose flour, with 2 teaspoons of baking powder and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I added in 1 cup of Greek yogurt. I used whole fat Greek yogurt because I talk about this all the time. We are not afraid of fats on the Mediterranean diet when they're coming from such natural sources. And it really helps with the texture and the flavor. Greek yogurt offers an incredible amount of protein. The all-purpose flour gets a bad rep, but it actually has a great amount of protein. You make that dough, set it off to the side while you soak a cup of majol dates. It's important that they're majol. It's important that they're as fresh as possible. So not the ones that maybe have been sitting in your pantry for months to even a year. They don't need to be crystallized. Hopefully they're fresh. And you soak them in boiling water for at least 10 minutes, up to maybe an hour, depending on when you think to make these and how much time you have. The skin of the dates kind of flake off after they've been soaked, so if you run them under the faucet, you can take all that peeling off, and then you have a really smooth date. You can easily throw them in the blender or a food processor, but I was too lazy. I took a fork, took some mussels, and mashed away to make kind of a paste. Then I added in a little bit of cinnamon. I did not mean to add cloves. That was a huge mistake. I thought I grabbed cinnamon. I don't know what I was thinking. Some milk and a little bit of vanilla extract. You could do any of your other favorite spices, but that date caramel is that paste that you spread on the inside of that dough. So now that the dough is rested and you have your date caramel cinnamon filling ready to go, you take the dough and you knead it a few minutes in the extra flour that you sprinkled on the surface of the counter, and then it becomes nice and soft. You basically want to knead it until you get a soft skin on the outside of the dough, and it just feels like a very pliable dough. Roll it out. I rolled it out to about 1/4 of an inch thick, which was honestly super perfect for exactly how it fit into this 9-inch round cake pan. You roll it out, and then you spread a really thin layer of that cinnamon date caramel. And like I said, this is where you could also add in those mix-ins, some flaked coconut, chopped chocolate. You could do some dried fruit. You roll it up. I made 8 cinnamon rolls out of this, and then I cut off the ends. You can bake those and do what you want with them separately, like on a sheet tray, but just for aesthetic reasons, you cut off the ends. And here's the freezer option. You can freeze these cinnamon rolls on a sheet tray of parchment paper individually, freeze them until they're frozen, and then you can take them and package them into a freezer safe container, Ziploc baggie. So you have individual cinnamon rolls that you can defrost overnight in the fridge and bake off in the morning. Caroline, that's way too much work. Okay. You can bake these cinnamon rolls, freeze them unfrosted, and you can, in little plastic baggies, you could also put some prepped tahini glaze. Tahini glaze, literally you stir it together. It should take 30 seconds. I don't think you really need to prep that in advance, but if you wanted to prep it individually, and then you can heat them in the toaster oven, you can heat them in the microwave. I really recommend taking them out of the freezer the night before. And then the third way that you could do these is frosted. I'm assuming as they reheat, you're gonna really get all that glaze. It's gonna really sink in and melt into it. So that would be the only con of freezing them with the frosting already on. I don't really mind. I think it'll add great flavor. So I'm gonna take the rest of these, freeze them, piece of parchment paper in the freezer, and then once they're fully frozen, I'm gonna throw them in a container for the freezer. They're not very sweet. You saw how thin that date caramel is, so it doesn't add a ton of sweetness. And then the tahini frosting is really not that sweet at all. I did 2 tablespoons of tahini to 1 tablespoon of maple. You get the slight hint maple, but it's really all about the tahini, which offers insane healthy fats. It's so good for us. These look decadent, I know, but they're insanely healthy. And I mean, you want them in moderation, you want a portion control. I would say 2 is definitely a serving, maybe 3. I have been thinking about making these for months, and so I'm excited that I actually made them. If you are allergic to tahini, I know sesame seeds is a common allergy. When I publish the recipe, I will leave substitutions of the different types of glazes you can make, how to replace tahini. Tahini is so special because it has that drippy consistency. You could also use almond butter, probably almond butter and maple would be delicious. You could do soaked cashews and some maple if you wanted to blend up soaked cashews that have been soaking for like 8 to 24 hours with some maple and make like a cashew frosting. That would be delicious. Again, I love the nuttiness of the frosting to pair with that cinnamon and that caramel-y date. I think that's enough ranting on the cinnamon date caramel maple tahini cinnamon rolls. Shall I try one on camera? They're kind of sticky and cold now, which I don't mind. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited. I've already tried this, so I already know it's delicious. These are unreal. These are so good. Honestly, could also be a dessert. You have to try these. All right, I'm saving this for later. Let's move on to the second recipe. For recipe number 2, you're gonna have to stick with me. It's gonna sound strange. A multi-grain Mediterranean breakfast bake. The reason why the Mediterranean diet is so incredible is because it's all about variety. Grains are so important, but you shouldn't just be eating oats every single week. Yes, I know it's so popular, readily available, cheap, lends itself to so many things, but like oats are not the only grain. Rice is not the only grain. There are so many whole grains in our world that we need to use more of. So I want to introduce you to more whole grains and ways to use them. So I used bulgur and cracked freekeh in this breakfast bake. I used 2 very overripe mashed bananas to add moisture to this, to add a little bit of sweetness to this, to add a little bit of flavor. If you hate bananas, I would recommend applesauce. I also used a dairy-free milk, so I made this completely vegan. You can use any nut milk or dairy-free alternative milk. You could use regular milk. That would be honestly amazing because it's gonna add a bunch of protein into this. You could also use 2 eggs. I used 2 flax eggs. I really wanted to use fresh apricots. They are in season in spring. Hopefully by the time this video is up, they will be in season, but I couldn't find any fresh apricots. It's way too early. I used dried apricots, which are also great. You definitely want to get the dried apricots that don't have any sugar on them. And then I used pistachios because I love the apricot pistachio combo. Pistachios are delicious. You could use walnuts, almonds, any nut that you love, as well as lots of spices to help bring up the flavor. So cinnamon, cloves. I meant to use cloves in this recipe, as well as cardamom. You could also use nutmeg, you could use ginger, any of your favorite spices. You could also take away the apricots and the spices and you could add mixed berries. You could add any of your favorite fruits. If you have fruits that you're trying to use up, or if you're trying to get rid of some nuts or something, you could also just throw that into this Mediterranean bake. I put in a ton of orange zest because I really feel like that plays well with the spices, the apricots, the pistachios in this dish. But if you wanted to use lemon, like a lemon blueberry freekeh and bulgur bake, that would be great. There's so many different variations. And then I used honey to sweeten it, a little bit of oil, and I really think that's all that went in it. You're gonna say, Caroline, I don't have freekeh or bulgur. I don't know where to get those. I would say go to your local Mediterranean store. I promise it exists in your city or at least close by. If you really don't have one, I would really recommend maybe getting those grains off of online. Lastly, if you don't want to get these grains, I have so many substitutes of what you could change up with this bulgur and freekeh combo. You could use oats, you could use rice, you could use quinoa. I just want again to emphasize that we should be eating a variety of grains. To make this breakfast bake, you start off with soaking the grains. You really want to soak them to help them cook better. So you do that with warming up that 1 cup of milk and then pouring that over the grains, and you'll know the grains are ready when they completely soak up all of that milk. And then while they're soaking, mix together that liquid mixture with the soaked grains, and lastly add in your mix-ins, whether it's any dried fruit, any fresh fruit, any nuts, any seeds. You wanted to make this banana cinnamon chocolate, you could do chocolate chips. There's so many variations. I usually, with my recipes, give you guys like a base and say, literally change it to however you'd like, to whatever fits your needs, your wants, your preferences. That's always a goal of mine because I want to make my recipes as adaptable and approachable and flexible as possible to you. Really, it's just stir, stir, stir. pour in an 8x8. I use this really fun ceramic baking dish, and then you just bake it off for about 35-40 minutes until it's golden brown on the edges. Let it cool for about 10 minutes. You can eat it immediately. There's so many ways you can eat it. You can pair it with a dollop of Greek yogurt and fresh fruit. You can pair it with some milk and honey. It freezes beautifully. It's pretty hard as is once it's cooled to room temperature, but even for better slicing, maybe refrigerate it for an hour or two, and then I would portion it out. I would say this makes about 6 servings, and it could sit in the fridge, honestly, for a week. So if you wanted to prep this, and let's say you only wanted to eat like 2 this week, and then 2 the next week, and 2 the following week, you wanna build up a stock of prepped recipes maybe in the fridge or freezer, I would really recommend freezing it individually in portion sizes, because that makes life so much easier for so many reasons, and then defrost that portion size again the night before. So what I love so much about this is honestly the textures. I mean, oats are great and all, but the freekeh and the bulgur put together offers so much good, chewy, satisfying texture. Bursting with so much flavor. The grains are super al dente. I love when you get a chewy, juicy apricot, and then you get that nice robust nuttiness from the pistachios. So much orange in every bite, which I love, but it's not too overwhelming. I love that it just adds a nice freshness because we're using dried grains that aren't super flavorful, you know, nuts, dried fruit. So you want to add some freshness into this dish, and that orange really does it. So chewy. That's what I love, is the chewiness of this dish. So much fiber, a lot of protein actually. Guys, I made the 3rd breakfast recipe. I was honestly very nervous about this because I don't know if you guys have ever used chickpea flour, and I was worried that these were gonna be too savory, which is why I added the tablespoon of sugar, which we'll talk about in the recipe. But, I mean, they taste healthy. I'm never gonna lie to you guys, but for how incredibly healthy they are for you, they're delicious. Give me 16 more of these. I don't wanna know what's in them. No, I'm kidding. You do wanna know what's in them. These are the incredible high protein, fluffy chickpea pancakes. Can be dairy free, mine are not. They can be vegan. They can be anything you want them to be. No, I'm kidding. All right, recipe breakdown. Chickpea flour, almond flour. I didn't want to use 100% chickpea flour because that would make the flavor too strong. The texture would be too soggy. Not that almond flour isn't soggy either, but if you don't want to use almond flour, you can use all-purpose flour, whole wheat flour, oat flour, all-purpose gluten-free flour for that almond flour replacement. Half a teaspoon of baking powder and soda and a little bit of salt, just a pinch, maybe 1/4 a teaspoon. Moving on to the wet ingredients, I used almond milk. You can use any unsweetened dairy-free milks or even regular milk, a tablespoon of butter. You could always do a tablespoon of vegan butter, a tablespoon of oil, 1 flax egg, or for more protein, you could do a normal egg, vanilla extract, tablespoon of sugar, 2 tablespoons of Greek yogurt. I wanted the protein and the moisture and the goodness that came from the Greek yogurt. You could use a coconut yogurt or dairy-free yogurt to keep this dairy-free. And then you stir it all together. You want to let it sit for about 5-10 minutes or so to really let that chickpea flour kind of absorb the liquid, and it gets fluffy, and it just needs to rest and kind of figure itself out for a second. And then you just lightly grease a nonstick pan, give them a good flip until they're about goldenish brown, lightly tan. I mean, are they the most gorgeous pancakes ever? Absolutely not. Am I good at making pancakes? Absolutely not. Did that stop me? No, because these are delicious. I could eat this entire plate. In fact, I think honestly this plate could be a serving. You could cut it in half. So if you wanted to meal prep these and freeze them, I would recommend doubling the batch, tripling the batch. They would last 3 months in the freezer. You could freeze them individually, and then once they're frozen, package them in a freezer safe container, Ziploc baggie, and they are incredible to reheat. I mean, frozen pancakes, we know this is a great frozen option. And I did a little secret sauce. This is my little secret hack to not having to use artificial, horrible, like calorie-free maple fake anything. So my little hack for a really, really delicious maple syrup sauce, I will take half a cup of frozen berries, microwave them. You can put them in a saucepan, heat them up. And frozen berries are great for us because they're picked at their peak nutritional benefit. I mean, you'd hope, right? And then they're frozen, so they stay really good and nutrient dense when they're frozen like this. And for like a cup of berries, I only do like 2 teaspoons of maple syrup. That maple syrup, if you get really high quality maple syrup, that taste, that flavor, you still get that lingering, delicious mapley taste. And that way you're eating mostly these berries, you're eating these fiber-rich, antioxidant-rich, incredible for you berries. When you warm up the frozen berries, they release their juices, and mixed with a little bit of maple syrup, you have then such a healthy, natural, nutrient-dense sauce. These are sensational. These are so good. And the last little thing I want to say about these is you can take out that tablespoon of sugar and you could add so many savory seasonings to this. You could do herbes Provence, you could do like basically any herb or spice blend, you could do za'atar, you could do any kind of spices, sesame seeds, and then put something savory to go with them. Like, the ways to make these savory honestly might even be better savory because of the chickpea flour. But I first just wanted to test out the recipe to make sure that they could be both, and now I know for sure, because it's obvious that they can be savory, but they definitely can also be sweet with that sugar. It's $3.40 and I might finish eating this whole plate of pancakes because I'm starving, and who says you have to eat this for breakfast, right? Am I right? In the outro, I'm probably gonna say 2 recipes because I didn't believe in myself that I'd actually get here to make the 3rd recipe, but I did it. Because we're always creating zest and delicious recipes, delicious Mediterranean diet recipes on my channel. Ciao, ciao. Back to when I originally filmed this video. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. Let me know which recipe was exciting or interesting, how you would change it up to fit your profile, your taste buds, what you enjoy. I really hope you got something out of this video. I cannot thank you enough for watching. I hope the person who requested for freezer-friendly recipes liked one of these. Definitely anxious about that. But I'll always make more. So that's the good thing about me, is I will always be coming up with more and more and more creative Mediterranean diet recipes. So thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed, and until next time, I hope you create a very zestful day. Ciao.